Hello. It is Monday, August 18th. How's everybody doing? Hopefully everyone had a fantastic weekend. Man, I got a good show planned today. The main point of the show today, we're going to comb through World Liberty Financials, crypto holdings. Are there any hidden gems in there potentially? As I always say, follow the smart money. Helium also made a huge announcement regarding revenue and token burns. And we're gonna delve into that as well and what that could mean in the future for the valuations of deep end projects. And should we be valuing them the way that we look at stocks, traditionally traded companies, or in TradFi, or should we be looking at them differently because of the flywheel effect? So we're gonna dig into that. I think I'm gonna make that a topic as well for one of our spaces, our deep end spaces, because I think it's worth talking about because really deep end is the first sector in crypto that these are real businesses, right? And we can start to actually value things not in just a speculative way, but in a way that's actually tied to revenue that makes sense, that's grounded, that's justifiable. We haven't really seen that in crypto before, so I think it's an exciting topic. And I think that Helium is really, they pioneered the space in so many different ways, and they're about to do it again with the way that they're burning tokens. So all good things, guys, all good things. I think the World Liberty Financial Holdings, super interesting. I really took some time to dive into the holdings that they have, some of the transactions they've made. So I think we can get some good info out of there. But as people are coming in, we're going to do our AI update. Like we normally do. I also wanted to play this video. This is freaking nuts. Just because I thought it was a cool video. I don't know if you guys saw this or not, but this guy literally threw a freaking fish. He is a hawk or an eagle, maybe. This thing just snagged it. Oh, pretty cool stuff there. All right, let's do the AI update, guys. Hopefully everyone's having a fantastic Monday. This is crazy to me. So it says that Reddit leads as the top AI information source in 2025. It says that analyzing 150,000 citations across 5,000 keywords, the report reveals that 40.1% of AI-generated responses reference Reddit, outpacing platforms like Google and Wikipedia. I thought that was really, really interesting. It says that it follows with 26.3% of Wikipedia is at 26.3% of YouTube, Google, not far behind, but Reddit is the overwhelming top source for info for AI responses. One of the things I like to bring up, as you all know, is the way that AI is going to make an impact in the medical field. And it's something not a lot of people are talking about, or at least I don't think they're talking about enough. They had this report that came out just 4 days ago that AI was able to design antibiotics for gonorrhea and MRSA superbugs. Said that it could potentially kill drug-resistant gonorrhea and MRSA, and that it was designed atom by atom by AI. Okay, so it still needs some years of refinement before in clinical trials before it'll be prescribed. But MIT came out and said that AI could start a second golden age in antibiotic discovery. This is a really big deal, guys, because one of the problems with antibiotics, for one, they get overprescribed, but also people don't finish their prescriptions, and a lot of these bacterial infections become resistant, and we've been getting to the point where we are like running out of our strongest antibiotics. It was causing a lot of concern. AI could come in and save the day. So this is a really cool story, something to keep an eye on. There's no shortage of medical advancements that we're going to see with AI. This Ozempic, so Novo Nordisk, I believe is the biggest Ozempic company. They are cutting prices in half for cash-paying U.S. patients. This is off the heels of Trump sending that letter in July to all the big pharmaceutical companies, the drug makers, telling them, hey, well, you need to lower prices. Basically, something that's been happening in the U.S. for a long time is, we pay a ton, and then they go and sell the same drug in other countries for a fraction of the price, and we kind of just bank these companies to sell everywhere else. Trump's pushing back on that. This is also off the heels of a huge lawsuit that Ozempic seeing. You know, and it seems like things are too good to be true. Generally, they are. There are now studies showing that people are having eye loss or a vision loss, rather, not their eyes themselves. They're having vision loss tied to Ozempic. Now, it says that there's a condition, this NAION, has reportedly affected thousands of users, and legal claims are now totaling billions of dollars. It says that the American Association of Ophthalmology suggests that Ozempic and other GLP-1 drugs can cause blindness or vision loss in several ways. It is worth noting this is a diabetic medication, and people with diabetes do have the potential of losing their eyesight anyway, but it does seem that there is a tie now to this, and that in the study they did that found that the risk was more than 4 times higher than people that were not on these medications. And it can cause sudden, often painless vision loss due to lack of blood flow to the optic nerve. So that's pretty scary stuff. That said, if you look at their revenue for this company, it's been on a crazy trajectory. The last 12 trailing months, $43.611 billion. And you can see the increases year over year here. Obviously, Ozempic is seeing a massive surge recently in demand, with a lot of people taking it for weight loss, but they're testing it for other things too. For people that just recently, they're finding that people that have a degraded kidney function are able to take these different diabetes medications, actually slowing the degradation rate of kidneys. So they're seeing a lot of other use cases for it, but making everyone blind, that wouldn't be a good thing, would it? One other thing that came up, there's a lot of discussion right now about what's happening in DC. Trump sent National Guard in to clean up the streets. There's a lot of people that are like way against this. There's a lot of people though that local that are being interviewed that are really for it, and the media keeps citing that crime is down so much. Well, the MPD, the union official for Metropolitan Police Department, said that the numbers are BS. Basically, he said they questioned the data. And this does go along with another report that just came out that there was a whistleblower that said they were manipulating the crime stats, and they just settled with this former sergeant. They settled with him in court over these claims, basically saying that they were changing the crime statistics to make it seem a lot better than it actually was. They're changing felonies to misdemeanors, for example. There's several examples they gave. So as it turns out, the taking property, for example, is one they used without right, which is basically people that are shoplifting and moving their offenses to be lesser offenses. That specific citation grew by 500%. They had other ones like assault with dangerous weapons, robberies, burglaries, felony assaults were all also put down into a lower class. So they've been lying about the crime statistics. So I don't know. I mean, I don't feel strongly one way or another about how they're going about it, but there is definitely truth that they have been lying about the crime numbers in DC. Shouldn't be a shock, though. I mean, everyone that they interview there, even like the media on both sides, Republican and liberal, have come out and said, like, yeah, it's horrible. The crime's horrible there. This just took place. We had Zelensky earlier today arrived at the White House. You'll remember there was that big debacle on Polymarket about whether or not he was actually wearing a suit. There's no tie there, but he's a little better, more dressed up than before. People like to make a big deal out of that. It wasn't just him, though. There was a plethora of people from over in Europe, leaders that came over. And I will say this just dropped this video here. The body language. No one looks very happy. So I don't know what's going to come of this. I'm sure we'll learn more throughout the day and throughout the week. But the body language doesn't look fantastic, in my opinion. So obviously, any positive news out of that would be good for markets. But we'll see what comes of it. I'm not holding my breath, guys. I'm not holding my breath. Let's see here. Let's get into some macro news, guys. We've got some big events this week. We've got, let me share this here. We have the Fed minutes from the last FOMC meeting, I think, are dropping on Wednesday. So Let me pull this up for you guys. Basically, they have their 8 meetings per year, and then 3 weeks later, roughly, is when they release the minutes, which is kind of a breakdown of what's discussed in these FOMC meetings. You can get a lot of good info out of those in many cases. If I can, here we go. Pull this up for you guys. So there are still 3 more meetings. The September ones where everyone's eyes are set right now. Is the Fed going to lower rates in September? July was the one we just had where they did not move rates. And then if y'all remember, like a day later, the revisions on the job numbers came in and everyone freaked out. Like, Powell should have lowered rates, whatever. The minutes, again, you look at the meetings here, the minutes released about 3 weeks later. So we will, I believe on Wednesday, get the notes from that meeting that happened in July. And if you remember, there's 2 of the members in the FOMC meeting that went against Powell, which is very rare. So I think the minutes, the breakdown from this meeting could actually be pretty interesting compared to the most of the other ones. So we'll see what comes out of that. The other thing is on Friday, and I brought this up several times, we have the Jackson Hole Summit. And what is Powell going to say? This report came out of Fortune earlier this morning saying that Powell may seriously disappoint Wall Street at Jackson Hole. And again, this is on Fridays when Powell is going to be making his statements there. Says that while Wall Street overwhelmingly expects the Fed to cut rates next month in that September FOMC meeting, the speech by Powell on Friday will give him a chance to hint at which direction policymakers are headed. But some analysts don't think a September rate cut is in the bag. And even some who do expect a cut are doubtful that Powell will say anything meaningful on Friday. But it is worth noting, last year in the same meeting, he did signal a pivot to cut rates. In that meeting, he said, the time has come for policy to adjust, and that my confidence has grown that inflation is on a sustainable path back to 2%. Of course, after those statements, we saw 4 rate cuts in total. Well, a total of 1%. So 4 quarter point cuts in the remaining FOMC meetings. So what will he say in this meeting? Said that this is Michael Pierce, the deputy chief U.S. economist at Oxford Economics, came out and said, he was quoted saying, tariffs are feeding through unevenly and will continue to push inflation higher in the coming months. It will be difficult for policymakers to tease out one-off tariff effects from longer lasting inflationary pressures. So in other words, it's going to be hard to sift through the data and determine exactly how much of the inflation is due to the tariffs and how much isn't. Not telling us anything we don't know. He, for one, thinks that the Fed will remain on hold until December, but a weak August jobs report could change his view. I don't think we can really pay attention to like the job report that comes out for August necessarily, but the revisions are what I'm looking at. What's the revision going to be from July? We saw May and June, they revised it down over 250,000 jobs. I would expect that we're going to see something similar for July when they actually revise the job numbers. So if the job reports come in super weak, then I think that's going to force Powell's hand for sure in September. The other thing to pay attention to here is we have some preliminary results now from University of Michigan. So they do a lot of surveys. They do a lot of economic reports. And the ones from August, and we don't have all the details yet, but the consumer sentiment right now has been dropping. Okay, so we had seen it start to rebound, but we are moving in the opposite direction now. It says consumer sentiment fell back about 5% in August, declining for the first time in 4 months. So ever since the whole Liberation Day, we've seen things largely rebound, but we are now starting to see things again move in the opposite direction. Largely stems from rising worries about inflation. It says that overall consumers are no longer bracing for the worst case scenario like we saw back in April for the economy feared in April. There you go. When reciprocal tariffs were announced and then paused. However, consumers continue to expect both inflation and unemployment to deteriorate in the future. So all signs that we could see Powell cutting rates. And one other thing, this counts really good, but they were talking about there are a lot of leading indicators suggesting that unemployment is set to rise. And I think we've been talking about this a lot, how the job market's been weaker than people have been saying. We're starting to see it in the numbers now, but it signals, this in particular signals that unemployment could exceed 5% in the coming months. And that would certainly be indication of a very much a weakening job market, and Powell would have to act in that case. So again, consumer sentiment falling off a cliff. How much can these companies, and we talked about this last week, but how much can they actually pass the costs on at this point? And I don't know that they can, even if they want to. We have rent costs coming down. So CPI, I don't think is going to be as bad as people are saying. We'll have to wait and see what's in the numbers. But the job market's the big thing, I think, that we need to be paying attention to. And I think the one thing that Powell is going to have to act on, and we look at polymarket odds, as of right now, we are still looking at a 74% chance that we see a rate cut in September. So still overwhelmingly looking like we are going to see a rate cut in September. Then we have October and December after that for the next, the following two meetings. What will we see? Got to pay attention to what Powell says on Friday, that's for sure. In those minutes on Wednesday, it'll be fun to delve through. All right, let's talk about some crypto, guys. Let's talk about some crypto. Bessent just sent this out. He said, implementing the Genius Act is essential to securing American leadership in digital assets. Stablecoins will expand dollar access for billions across the globe. That's absolutely true. People that are unbanked all of a sudden are going to be able to use stablecoins, and solidifying the US dollar in the stablecoin race is going to be really important. But it also says it'll lead to a surge in demand for US treasuries. Sounds familiar. We talk about that like every day because it is super important. This is going to be a multi-trillion-dollar a year buyer of our treasuries. They're going to be buying T-bills. That's huge. One of the things we talked about last week is, I think it was Circle and Tether are both launching their layer ones, their own layer ones, instead of using Ethereum. A lot of that is because, well, they're going to be holding treasuries. Rates are expected to drop. They've got to offset some of that loss in revenue. A lot of that's going to be in their own layer ones by capturing those fees that would otherwise be captured by Ethereum. That said, I think we're going to see plenty of banks, plenty of entities launch their stablecoins on Ethereum. I'm not worried about Ethereum necessarily. This just broke this morning. Play this for you guys.
Cryptocurrency exchange Gemini's space station filing for its IPO and joining a wave of digital asset firms seeking to.
So Winklevoss twins, if you remember, they're the ones that got screwed by Zuckerberg in the Facebook deal, but didn't hold them down apparently.
Tap into the public markets. The company founded back in 2014 by billionaire twins Cameron and Tyler Winklevoss. It plans to list on the NASDAQ right here under the ticker symbol GEMI. Terms of that offering were not disclosed in a filing that was made public on Friday. The company supports more than 70 cryptocurrencies and operations in more than 60 countries. It also supports stablecoins and issues the Gemini dollar stablecoin. Now, in the 6 months ended June 30th, Gemini reported a net loss of about $280 million on total revenue of about $69 million.
That what part is interesting. They had a really bad earnings announced recently. That said, is this just today? No, it was yesterday. This came out. Gemini secured a $75 million credit line from Ripple ahead of their NASDAQ IPO. Says that they've secured a total of $150 million credit line with an initial commitment of $75 million as it prepares for its IPO. But it did say they're not required to use Ripple's XRP, but it is likely they're going to be using the RLUSD. That's the Ripple stablecoin. The potential for higher stablecoin flows to interact with the XRP ledger can enhance its settlement pathways and developer engagement. So obviously they did this in hopes that it would drive demand to XRP. Says Gemini's pursuit of IPO comes amid a challenging financial landscape. For a net loss of $282.5 million. So a lot of people are like, how are in this environment are they losing money? It's a good question. I from what I've read, a lot of it is marketing costs. They've had absorbent marketing costs. 41.4 million in 2024 was their losses, so much higher this year, but doesn't seem to be holding them back. Does not seem to be holding them back. So another one going public. Some FUD going around about MicroStrategy, guys. It's a lot. I don't know if you've seen this. People are saying that it's like a paid. A lot of people are getting paid to basically FUD MicroStrategy. This guy is just like this guy. I don't know. I probably shouldn't even give him attention. He just like talks about Bitcoin going to zero constantly, and he's just like always wrong and deletes his tweets. It is worth noting, though. I think we do need to remember this. Not trying to FUD markets, guys, but Michael Saylor did lose $6.8 billion in a single day back in the dot-com bubble. Okay, so he has done some shady stuff in the past. Says that his company, Microstrategy, was also charged with the SEC for fraudulently cooking the books and deceptively reporting a profit despite operating in a major loss. The firm should have gone bankrupt, but Saylor quietly cut a deal with regulators, paid a record settlement under confidentiality, and secured a bailout. So, says, don't say you weren't warned. You know, I for one do think that these treasury companies, while I have exposure to a bunch of them, we've talked about this a lot last week. I'll touch on it more in a minute. I think there's still opportunity there. The more leverage they use, I think the more likely it's all going to blow up at some point. Even Vitalik came out and said that last week or maybe 2 weeks ago. But this guy came out, you guys probably know him. He was dogging MicroStrategy a bunch. Apparently he got a cease and desist letter.
I'd like to make this video as a follow-up to the two videos which I made over the past 48 hours. I posted one on Friday and one yesterday.
He was basically calling MicroStrategy a scam, and then he came out with this video shortly after.
Regarding MicroStrategy. I have an official statement that I'd like to read here. So please give me a moment to read three important things. For the avoidance of doubt, let it be known that one, MicroStrategy is not a Ponzi scheme. The company is a publicly traded business intelligence firm that happens to maintain an unusually robust interest in Bitcoin.
So this is after he said there's a Ponzi scheme in several videos. Obviously, their lawyers contacted him. He backtracked everything he said and read this statement. Found that very interesting. And speaking of Bitcoin, where are we at here? 116,000, just over. We did see a bit of a drop over the weekend. But guys, we are still just consolidating this range. We saw the leg up. With the amount of buying taking place right now, and I talked about that a lot on Friday. There are some whales buying these dips, guys. Like huge institutional interest right now. I, for one, even if we see more pullbacks, I, for one, believe we will still see new all-time highs met this year with Bitcoin. I would be shocked if we don't. I don't have a crystal ball, not financial advice, but I think it will happen. And then talking about Ethereum, obviously we saw a big push up. We still haven't broken new all-time highs, the high that was set back in 2021, but I think we're going to get there. Again, there are a lot of people saying that we will see more pullbacks. We traditionally do. If you guys remember last August, we saw a big pullback last August. That was when the reversed carry trade with Japan unwound. Really freaked out markets, but that was a great buy the dip opportunity because we rebounded very well. And then leading into the election, obviously, we know what happened there. And then we saw the big surge through the end of the year. Wouldn't be surprised if we see that happen again with the timeline of events that are taking place. But could we see weakness in August and the beginning of September? It's possible. We generally do in markets, actually. Doesn't mean that it's going to necessarily repeat. You know, history doesn't always repeat. It often rhymes, as they say. But I do still remain very bullish on where Ethereum's going. There's a lot of FUD right now on that, too. Like a lot of people have been unstaking. There's like a few $1 billion worth of ETH that's being unstaked right now. So a lot of people are saying that that's a sign there's going to be a big sell-off. I don't know. I think Ethereum is still the institutional choice for right now. Base in particular, the layer 2 that I think we're seeing a lot of capital flow to and one that has to be on your radar. Speaking of ETH, Ken Griffin, one of the richest people in the world, revealed a 4.96% ownership stake through Citadel in SBET. So, of course, this is the second largest. Oh, I thought I pulled up the list. Oh, here we go. I did. The second largest Ethereum treasury company. That's SharpLink Gaming. So the whales are buying, guys. The whales are buying. He's a 5% interest in this company. And of course, these Ethereum treasuries have been going absolutely bananas. I think the next rotation is Solana. Talked about it a lot last week, guys. We're at 183.73 right now. We've seen a little bit of a pullback. But you look at the trends that are taking place right now. For one, Solana just broke 107,540 transactions per second on their mainnet, 8,961 times Ethereum, and more than all other chains combined. So, yeah, guys, people are going to keep building on Solana. I think we need, and I talked about this on Friday, we need the market structure bill to get passed, which could happen into September, early October. And then we have the new deadline for the spot ETFs. I think they're waiting. I think the SEC is waiting for that market structure bill, or the what's the other name for it? Clarity Act. I think they're waiting for that for regulatory guidelines, and then they're going to pass all of these spot ETFs in probably mid-October if it all comes together. That could be a huge surge. October, November, and December, like we saw last year. I think we could see a similar thing take place. To me, people are already starting to front run Solana. And it's in the numbers. Look at the amount of capital that's being moved over to Solana from other chains. So $230 million bridged from other chains to Solana in the last week, including $146 million from Ethereum alone. Follow the money, guys. So I do think Ethereum can still run, but we're seeing the next rotation already starting to take place. Why? Because people are front running it. They know what's going to happen. They know that the spot ETFs are expected to get approved. They know that the stability bill, the market structure bill, is expected to get passed. Okay, that's going to lead to a massive amount of capital going. And Solana, again, is the one I have my eyes on. In particular, we've got UpXE here. Still up when I originally covered about $6.60 last week. But, at the time, people were expecting that we would have the spot ETFs potentially approved by the end of August. Obviously, that got delayed and caused a little bit of a sell-off. But this is the one that Arthur Hayes has joined. They have 2 million Solana already in their treasury. They have a bunch of funding to buy more. So follow the money, follow the treasury play. The other one that I've been talking about is the DeFi Development Corp. They just announced they bought a lot more on Friday, a lot more Solana. They are the second largest Solana treasury. Okay, this is where I believe things are going to go as long as the regulatory stuff comes together. And we could be looking at really October when that all comes to fruition, but people are going to front run it. We've seen it with the Ethereum play. Okay, they believe that we're going to start seeing the capital flow there. Be pretty exciting if it does. All right. That brings us to World Liberty Financial. So let's get into the details, guys. So, of course, World Liberty Financial, co-founded by Eric Trump and Donald Trump Jr. It says that, and this was just, I believe, last week, on Friday, has taken a major leap into the spotlight. On Wednesday, the brothers joined a NASDAQ bell-ringing ceremony in Times Square, celebrating a $1.5 billion token arrangement that could push their firm into the upper ranks of decentralized finance. In particular, this Alt5 Sigma has a 7.5% stake in the WLFI token, which has not yet launched. It did go on to say down here, some analysts are saying that they see parallels between today's surge in speculative token investments and the pre-2008 financial exuberance. They caution that these models depend heavily on continuous price appreciation to remain viable. Guys, this is what I'm talking about, the treasury stuff, man. The more leverage there is in the system, the more risk there is that this thing all comes to a grinding halt. But this Alt5 Sigma, we pull them up, they're on the NASDAQ. Alts is their ticker. They did pump up on the news last week, have since, they remain kind of the same, I guess. Market cap is $747 million. Not necessarily interested in getting into this stock, but I do think it is worth looking at what they are holding. So if you go to this website, dropstab.com, you can look at a bunch of public holdings, public wallet holdings. World Liberty Financial, you can see in detail everything they're holding. So we look at the list here, and we're going to break down each and every one of these. Ethereum's their largest holding, obviously, but there's a lot more down the list. I'm going to show you a couple that I think are very interesting to me right now. But total holdings of about $492 million for Eric Trump and Donald Trump Jr.'s company. The first one, outside of Ethereum, of course, and we've talked about Ethereum enough at this point, but Tron. Tron is their second largest holding. Tron obviously sitting at a $33 billion market cap. That's Justin Sun's company. It is the number 9, so it is a top 10 crypto company. They have a huge following on X, 1.7 million followers. They say they are build the future with Tron. Now, why would they be such big holders of Tron? I did find this article. Pull it up here. Here it is. This is from earlier this year, back in January. If we go down here, notably, Tron founder Justin Sun said in X post on Sunday that Tron DAO has invested an additional $45 million into World Liberty Financial, bringing the total investment to $75 million. Well, they've invested $75 million. Sun's an advisor to World Liberty Financial. It has invested $75 million. So it makes sense that Tron would be their second largest holding. Okay. Let's keep going down the list, though. The next one is this Mantle, which I don't know much about. Their 32nd ranked project in all of crypto. Blockchain for banking. Could this be a play? What have they been talking about? How they got debanked. They've been in the news a lot talking about that. So this is a play on the banking sector. Okay, so I think this one's incredibly interesting to me. Did I pull up their X page? I wonder how many followers they have on X. Let's see. Make sure I follow them. Only 63,000 followers. So market cap right now, again, $4.32 billion. Let's see what their holdings are on this. Let's look at Mantle here. Not a huge holding. $7.68 million worth, though. For Tron here, obviously they have Bitcoin and then a bunch of stable coins. But moving down the list here. So that was Mantle. That's a play on the banking sector. Obviously, the Trump brothers have been constantly in the news talking about how they got debanked and how they need to bring crypto and blockchain to the banking sector. So that's interesting. The next one is this White Rock, $327 million market cap. This thing had climbed quite a bit. It's a pretty attractive spot down here, honestly. So what do they do? On-chain brokerage for tokenized equities and bonds. About that. Only 41,000 followers. But again, this is one of their larger holdings. $5.22 million in this White Rock holding. $27 million market cap. Again, getting into on-chain brokerage. If we look at their site here, what else have we seen here? Chainlink. Chainlink's everywhere. So we're going to talk more about that in a minute. But could this be a play? Bond, stocks, properties. So they're talking about bringing stocks on chain. What about properties, RWAs? Again, one of the larger holdings by the Trump brothers. Follow the money, guys. The next one is Athena. I believe that's ENA. This will load. Here we go. This one's sitting at $4.46 billion. So this is a top 30 play. That last one I just covered is only the 219. So that one's interesting to me. If they're getting into RWAs, they're held by the Trump brothers at $327 million. I'm talking about White Rock. White's the ticker on that. What's it built on here? Solana. That's interesting. I might have to get a position in that one. This one, Athena. So what do they do? So it's enabling internet money. It's kind of vague. But I did look on here, looking into this project a little bit, content overview. Says that they're building a Telegram saving and payments application for 1 billion people. Interesting. There's something else they said in here about their revenue, I thought. Oh, here we go. Grew to third largest US dollar asset in the space at $6 billion supply in 10 months. Fastest US dollar asset to reach $5 billion supply in crypto history. And they just surpassed a $1.2 billion run rate annualized revenue in the last month. That was all last year. So when you're talking about, they're last year they're at $1.2 billion in annualized revenue. They're at $4.46 billion market cap. I think this is one that could potentially run. And again, it is in the World Liberty Financial holdings. And here's their website here. So looks like they have their own stablecoin too. Very interesting stuff. And if we go back to their holdings on that one, that was $3.94 million in Athena. So that brings us to some of the lower cap ones, some of their smaller holdings. Let's see here. The next one is this Falcon Finance. Oh, this is a stable coin. So Falcon US dollars. So this is a stable coin currently with $1.23 billion. So looking at their website, though, join the Falcon community. So it looks like it's a yield generating protocol. Interesting. $1.4 billion in TVL. You see more and more of these yield focused protocols, I think. So that's another one of their holdings. I'm not super excited about that, but some of these, though, when they launch a token, if you use their protocol, they do airdrops. People have made a lot of money on airdrops. But $1.2 billion, that's not a small number by any means. Let's see. The next one, this EOS. So if we're looking down the list here, EOS is at $1.82 million. Let's see. EOS, $794 million market cap. Look at that. Look at this chart, though. This thing is way down. Could this be a good buying opportunity? What exactly do they do? And what chain is this one on? Oh, math? That's weird. Looks like now known as Volta, previously EOS. They have 108,000 followers. Web3 banking network empowering the next frontier of finance. Made in America. Huh. Okay. Look at their website. Oh yeah, this one. Look at all their different dApps and integrations. This thing, they're integrated with like everything. The list goes on and on and on. So this one was interesting as well. So again, that one is at EOS is at a $794 million market cap, and as far as holdings go, $1.82 million. This is all World Liberty Financial holdings. Ondo is one that is one of my big five, guys, and I've talked about this a lot this year. My big five right now, it's been this way since like May, June. All of them have done really well. Ethereum obviously has been one. You've got Solana, XRP. We're going to talk more about XRP here in a minute, and then Ondo and Chainlink. I think all of those can do incredibly well, but in particular, you see Ondo down here. They only own 329,000, which is kind of surprising to me. But when you look at where Ondo's at, and they're getting into the RWA side of things, I think there's a ton of potential on this project. Currently sitting at $3 billion market cap, so not a low cap by any means, but like look at the price action we've seen. Look at where we're at right now. And Ondo and Chainlink in combination are the two that I'm really, really interested in. There's a lot of big whales that are holding Ondo. New era of financial inclusivity on chain. Again, they're looking to bring assets on chain. Here's their website. As featured in Bank of America, Bloomberg. Bullish, that's that new company that just went public last week. Major in the RWA. I think they're like the RWA play, really. And if you remember, I covered this back in June. Chainlink, JP Morgan, and Ondo Finance complete cross-chain treasury settlement. So JP Morgan is working with Chainlink and Ondo. And that should be no surprise that since we covered this, both are up substantially. But I think they could go a lot higher. Not to mention Chainlink. And Chainlink over the weekend saw a massive whale come in and buy up $21 million worth of Link. Where's Chainlink at? 24.97. I think this could still go much higher. I mean, still big market cap, just under 17 billion, but Chainlink is being integrated into everything. And you see this big institutional wave of money coming in. Chainlink is going to benefit in a big way. So Chainlink and Ondo to me are two that, if you're not wanting to be in like super small caps, these are some larger caps that I think can do quite well. They're not going to give you probably the multiples of some of the smaller cap plays that obviously also carry more risk. But I think Chainlink is a phenomenal long-term play as well as Ondo. So those are two that I would absolutely be looking at. And then these last couple are really interesting to me because they're small, they're lower cap coins. This one's 564 million. This build on. But if we look at the website here, you see their partners. They do have World Liberty Financials in here. Come across in a second. But they're working with this USD1. And this is the stable coin for World Liberty Financial. So we go to their website here, or their X page. USD1 Launchpad powering real world use cases across chains. So they are a launchpad for the stable coin for the stable coin for World Liberty Financial. And this is the launchpad using that stable coin, supporting multi-chain for real world use cases across different chains. Okay. So they're obviously this, if you look at, let's see. Oh, this is what I wanted to play here. Pull this up. So they went on and talked about this new stable coin with World Liberty Financial. This was just a couple of days ago. Oh, so audio not coming through. Sorry, let me reshare this real quick. But again, this is the stable coin for World Liberty Financial.
Like this, maybe in the history of finance, that brings visionaries and people who have the relationships and the experience together to create something so unique. And one other thing that I want to point out is USD1. We just announced the first ever point program for a stable coin ever. So what that means is users of USD1 are going to be able to earn loyalty points similar to airline miles or credit card points for holding, transacting, and using USD1. This has never been done before, and it's going to create massive, massive effects for the growth.
Which raises the next.
Boom. Okay, so we need to be looking for projects that are tied to the utility of USD1. That's a stablecoin for World Liberty Financial. Again, this all goes back to Trump Jr. and Eric Trump. And this project right here is a launch pad for real world utility, real world projects utilizing USD1. World Liberty Financial is also a holder of this token. That's how I found it. So not massive, not in a massive position by any means, 231,000, but it is one of their holdings. Okay, so you have to look for these connections. So could this thing run? I absolutely think this thing could run. You know, they're just coming out and talking about this stuff in the news now, the USD1 and the utility that's going to be tied to it. Their, loyalty program where they're going to get points for utilizing USD1. What do you think is going to happen here? I think this launch pad could freaking go bananas. Now, I wish I had been paying closer attention to this, and I will from now on, because if you look at the price action on this thing, and look, this thing it's done 100x since May. Like, that is insane. So you got to look back at where when these purchases are taking place. I'm going to be keeping a very close eye on their portfolio moving forward. But it's not just I will pull up USD1 here, I believe is what I have next. CoinMarketCap takes forever to pull up for whatever reason. Yeah, so there's the World Liberty Financial USD1 stablecoin. Right now they have over $2 billion on chain on their stablecoin. So we got to start looking at what projects are partnering with World Liberty Financial, and in particular their stablecoin. I think all of those projects can have the chance to do really, really well. If we go to, there we go. This next one, and this is a weird one. So EGL1, very similar. Again, this is another holding. This is like their smallest cap holding in their entire portfolio here. EGL1 here, only holding $35,000, so not a huge position, but it is a position nonetheless. And it's a small cap, guys. So what is this thing? Eagles Landing. Says it right here in their portfolio. World Liberty Fi makes the real change. We follow. There it is, USD1 again. Here's that stable coin. EGL1. What is it? It's a superhero comic book. What kind of comic book is it? Well, take a look. It's a Trump-based comic book. I don't know. What that's going to do, but again, it's a low cap. It's held by World Liberty Finance. It's tied to their stable coin. Start connecting the dots, sitting at a market cap of just under $80 million. This thing could absolutely run. And it's interesting to me just because it's a lower cap. So there's generally going to be more upside there. So just connecting the dots there. Now, what I thought was weird, because in this article, it talks about how earlier this year, how they did buy Aave, Chainlink. Obviously, they still have their Tron and ENA holdings. I went back through, and they did sell off their Aave and their Chainlink holdings earlier this year that they had been holding. I'm still a big believer in Chainlink, even though they've sold it. And it does look like they're using Aave to custody their assets, and they're getting yield on Aave's network. So that's another one that did really well in the last market cycle that could bounce back as well, because people are using it to get yield. I don't know what's going on with, there we go. So Aave's $4.4 billion market cap. So this website is legit. So obviously World Liberty Financial Holdings is the most watched one, but you can watch, there's several other. You can see El Salvador's Bitcoin portfolio. You can see the US government's Bitcoin holdings as well. But if you want to track this dropstab.com is where you want to go, and you can keep an eye on their holdings, any changes they make. So if you're navigating this, let's go back to this real quick. So here you are, you can see other holdings. You can then click on the far right here, and it'll show you the different transactions when they've been buying. So it looks like their last purchase here on ETH was July 23rd. You can see when they've been selling as well. So it gives you a really good comprehensive view on all of their holdings, any transactions as well. But I'm definitely looking at some of these, like Mantle, White Rock plays into bringing banking on chain. Ondo, I'm a huge fan of. And these lower cap ones, this Launchpad for projects with their stablecoin, and then this, comic book. It seems stupid, but guys, like, it's low cap. I mean, those are the ones that could potentially fly. So I will be keeping a close eye. If they make any moves into new projects, I'll cover it on my live streams for you guys. But yeah, I think it'll be a good way to potentially get in early on some of these projects. Whew. All right. Covered a lot. We're going to get into Helium and the changes that they announced. And we're going to talk about the valuation of deep end projects here to close the day. And whether or not we should be looking at these the way we look at traditional investments and how we value traditional publicly traded companies. So let's take a look at the crypto bubbles here on the deep end news. There we go. Look, one is not like the others. H&T, on a day that we're seeing blood in the streets, H&T, Helium is actually slightly up. And why might that be? Well, for one, A lot of positive metrics behind Helium right now. Now up to almost a $1.5 million $1.5 million daily active users. Daily transfers now at 48.5 terabytes a day. Total mobile hotspots. Look at that. Look at that surge. 6,100 in the last week. Holy shit. So obviously the metrics are good, but this is the big one here. Amir came out and said, on top of this exponential network growth, we're going to begin burning HNT equal to 100% of Helium mobile subscriber revenue. That's a huge deal, guys. This guy, Dylan Bain, follow him. He works for Masari. He said, if this is true, burning all Helium mobile subscriber revenue would increase the burn rate of HNT by nearly 10x overnight. And the token could become net deflationary within months. This is something that we were predicting would happen within a year. Now this changes everything, guys. We could see Helium become net deflationary within months. They would be the first to do it. It says they reported $2 to $2.3 million in revenue from the MVNO just in May, and that the number has likely grown. Obviously, there's been some interesting takes here. This guy came in and said that I've mentioned this before, but Helium is a future top 20 project. That's pretty bullish. I'm going to break down the math there. Obviously, I covered this on Friday, but there's some whales accumulating. I wonder if someone knew that this announcement was coming. I guess this happened over the past 2 months, but says 14 fresh wallets have been continuously accumulating HNT from Coinbase, totaling $32 million have been swooped up by whales. That's a big number when you consider, the total market cap right now is what, $590 million. When someone's purchased just $508 million, so $500 million, and someone has accumulated $32 million just in the last couple months, somebody knows what's coming. But I'm going to go back to this. Top 20 projects. What would that take? What would that take for Helium to get to a top 20 project? Because as of right now, it's 118. So we're at 508 million. In order to get to a top 20, it would have to be pushed to an $8.7 billion market cap. And that's at current values. Obviously, if we see the total market cap of crypto increase and we see a big surge like we're hoping, these numbers are all going to go up. So he does say future, but I did the math here. You would have to have roughly a 17x on the market cap of Helium at current circulating supply. That would put it at $46 per HNT if we were to get back, or we were to move into a top 20 project at current market caps. Okay, so if we see more money, flow in, obviously that number would have to be a lot higher. And that brings me to my next point, which is how should we be valuing DeepIn projects? Because one of the ways you can value a traditional stock would be this P to S ratio, which is your price to sales. Essentially, it is your market cap divided by your total revenue or gross revenue over a 12-month period. And it got me thinking, what's a good ratio? And it says here, a good P to S ratio for the tech world or high growth area, which I would say we are in with DeepIn, would be between 6 and 8. And that's a pretty common PS ratio. Obviously, the lower the ratio, the more attractive it is. That means that there's more revenue in comparison to the market cap. The higher that number, the more overvalued potentially it is. Well, the PS ratio for Helium at its current market cap, based on the revenue here by Dylan Bain, said that $32 million in annualized revenue. This is okay. Back in when was this? This is back in June. So we have been seeing growth. So it might be higher now than 32 million, but let's just use that number as a figure. That would put the PS ratio for Helium currently at 16. Okay, that's a lot higher than what you would consider to be normal, 6 to 8. So again, that would lead us to believe, according to traditional valuation metrics, that Helium is still pretty overvalued compared to its revenue. But that does really, I think, call to question whether or not we can look at it that way for these deep end projects, because the token burning aspect in becoming deflationary is something you don't see in startups. And I think it's this wider discussion that's been coming up in a lot of spaces recently, which is, should we be burning tokens early, or should that money be going back into the protocol for growth? Because traditionally in startups, you reinvest into growth. Okay, it would be crazy for a small company or startup that has equity to basically do a stock buyback. That's what these token burns are in a sense. It's reducing the circulating supply, reducing the float. So I think we have to potentially look at things differently when it comes to deep end, because you have this certainly a startup, high growth type valuation, but you also have essentially stock buybacks where you're creating scarcity around your shares or your token. So does that mean that you can justify a higher PS ratio? I think that is what's going to be really exciting about Helium, because as I mentioned in the opening, they've really innovated. I mean, there's a lot of deep end projects that exist today because of Helium, and now we're about to see it become the first net deflationary deep end project. And I think we're going to have to wait and see now how this plays out as far as the value of H&T goes. What is justifiable? And do we need to start figuring in that, hey, we can start to value these things higher because they are burning tokens out of supply? I think you can make that argument, especially with the growth we're seeing. I think some like quarter over quarter growth, we're seeing something like 300%. So I think that does, lead us to potentially higher valuations when you look at some of these ratios. What other projects do we need to keep an eye on? Well, the other one that was mentioned here is that Geodnet could become deflationary within a year. Obviously, this is before H&T or Helium just made this announcement. That was the expectation. So Helium's going to be the first to do it. Geodnet could very likely be the second to do it, become net deflationary. Very exciting stuff, guys. Very exciting stuff. And I think it's going to really allow us to see the full flywheel in effect and see, should we be burning tokens early? Should we be putting it back into these projects? Does it make a difference in the valuation? Is it going to actually move the needle when it comes to the price of these tokens? I can tell you, for me, after this announcement, I think I'm going to expand my position in H&T. Not financial advice. You need to do what's best for you. But I have some other projects that in the short term, I'm not so sure that they're going to make moves. So maybe I will take a portion of those holdings and rotate to H&T. This is a huge announcement, guys. I think, I don't know that people understand just how massive this is. So it'll be very exciting times over the next few months to see what happens with H&T. Will it rebound in a major way? I think it will. Okay, I definitely think it will. Speaking of Geodnet, I'm not going to get into the details here, but I am going to do a separate video I'm going to post. And it's going to talk about GIP 8, GIP 8, as well as GIP 7. So there's two that are up for a vote right now. I'm going to break down the details of those in a separate video, so be on the lookout for that. I'll get those probably posted tomorrow. Would be my goal there. So you know what you're voting on. And that is what I got for the show today, guys. That is what I got for the show. What did Bob say here? Has there been any blockchain-based companies with tokens that have gone public? Curious what that would look like. I don't know. Actually, I'm not sure. What would that look like? Because now all of a sudden you have stock as well as your tokens. I mean, realistically, the fact that they're having tokens at all kind of is like an IPO, just in the crypto space. I feel like that would fracture their value proposition if all of a sudden you have tokens and you have stock. I don't know. I don't know about that. That's an interesting question, though. Bob is going to be on the Deep End Coffee Hour tomorrow morning. I saw with Havelo. You guys need to check that out. Just let me pull that up. Make sure you guys get on there. Give a shout out to Bob. He's an avid listener. Let's see here. Velo. Here it is. Here it is. There's our guy, Bob, right there. He's an ambassador for Havela. So that is tomorrow morning, 9 Eastern time. They do it every week. I've been on a couple times too. So check it out, guys. Check it out tomorrow. All right. That's what I got. You see, you make it look easy. Oh, man. I'll tell you what. I was actually, I was talking to some of my friends over the weekend. So I remember I went on my first live stream like a couple years ago, I think. It was with Joe, actually. And I forget a couple other guys. It is a little nerve-wracking because you're like, oh, man, like I'm live. What if I say something stupid? Now that's going to be out there forever. And then I guess you just kind of get comfortable with it. But, man, you'll kill it. You'll do well. Just, you know what you're talking about. Just spread some alpha for everybody, brother. Woo! That's what I got for everybody today. Keep an eye on the Trump holdings, guys. I'm probably going to take a little position in a couple of those. And then the big thing, pay attention to what Jerome Powell says on Friday. I'll dig through the minutes from the last FOMC meeting on Wednesday once we have those details. And will we see a pullback? I don't know. But I think that really that Q4, man, is shaping up to be, if the macro holds out for us, man, that's the big question. But the spot ETF approvals, right? And then you have the Clarity Act. Those could both come together right at the beginning to middle of October. And I think, I'm looking to front run those with some of these treasury plays. And I think, if we do see that happen, we see a rotation of Solana, we're already starting to see the front running. Let's be real. That is going to pump bags, baby. I think we're going to see DPIN be a huge beneficiary of that, and the Clarity bill just in general. And then I'm sure there'd be some meme plays too. As much as I hate it, if you really want to take advantage of the liquidity, you gotta look where the liquidity is going to take advantage of the opportunities there, guys. And there will be some for sure. Woo! All right. I'll be back tomorrow with you guys. We have our Deep and Connected space at noon Eastern time every Tuesday. So we'll have a great discussion tomorrow. You guys want to join in for that? And with that said, have a wonderful day. Go outside, be active, exercise that brain. I'll see y'all tomorrow. Peace.